Hello and welcome back to Indus News with me, Osman Lone. Well, we begin this hour with our top story, and that's Kashmir, with the Committee of Foreign Affairs of the EU Parliament to address the worsening situation in occupied Kashmir. Azad Jammu and Kashmir's Prime Minister Raja Farooq Haider is briefing the body. Farooq Haider will also meet British parliamentarians in London after the meeting. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says India has failed to convince the EU Parliament to drop Kashmir from being discussed. He said India is facing defeat on every international forum over the crisis in the occupied valley. The Foreign Minister added that the EU should play its role to help resolve the Kashmir dispute. Well, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says escalation of tensions with India over occupied Kashmir could lead to a nuclear war. Addressing an international Sikh convention in Lahore, Khan said war is not a solution for any issue. But the situation in Kashmir is not acceptable to Pakistan. Khan said 8 million Kashmiris are living under siege since August the 5th. He said Indian ruling party BJP is under the influence of an extremist ideology. Khan said minorities are enjoying full rights in Pakistan. Pakistan has granted consular access to Indian spy Kulbhushan Jadhav in accordance with the ICJ verdict. Pakistan's Foreign Office says Indian Deputy High Commissioner Gaurav Ahluwalia met Jadhav for 2 hours. It said no restriction on language of communication was imposed on India's request. Jadhav was arrested from Pakistan's southwestern Balochistan province in 2016. He was sentenced to death on charges of espionage and terrorism. In July, the International Court of Justice rejected India's plea to acquit Jadhav of espionage charges. In Kabul, US envoy Zalmay Khalilzad shared a draft peace agreement with Afghan President Ashraf Ghani. Ghani's spokesman Siddiq Siddiqui said a ceasefire is part of the deal brokered between the United States and the Taliban. He said the president wants the US to share details of the draft deal with all Afghan leaders.
To a ceasefire that will result to a direct talks, and finally we could convince the Taliban to abandon violence against the Afghans. And absolutely, that will lead us to a settlement.
Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif says Tehran will reduce its commitments to the 2015 nuclear deal if European member states fail to protect its economy from US sanctions. He was speaking to reporters along with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Moscow. Zarif said it's meaningless to uphold the deal if Iran does not receive its benefits as promised. More in this report.
Tensions between Iran and the US increased last year when Washington pulled out of the deal and imposed sanctions on Tehran, and later announced a naval coalition mission to secure navigation in the Strait of Hormuz after attack on oil ship. Foreign Minister Javad Zarif traveled to Moscow amid heightened tensions in the Persian Gulf. Meeting his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov, Zarif welcomed Moscow's proposal for ensuring security in the Gulf.
Our position is very close to Russia when it comes to the safety in the Gulf. I think it can be guaranteed only through cooperation, not by imposing restrictions on coastal states.
Lavrov says both Iran and Russia are facing illegal US sanctions. He called for strengthening bilateral economic ties.
We have agreed to make further efforts and take more measures to protect economic projects with Iran and to gain independence from payments in dollars.
The two sides agreed that mutual cooperation is in the interest of the region and beyond.
The group Hezbollah and Israel have exchanged fire along the Lebanon border after a week of growing tensions. Hezbollah claims it destroyed an Israeli tank, while Israel's military retaliated by firing hundreds of shells into Lebanon. Iran says Hezbollah's attack on Israel was an act of retaliation. Israel says Washington fully supports its right to self-defense. In the meantime, Bahrain has instructed all of its citizens to leave Lebanon immediately. Earlier, the Lebanese Prime Minister Saad Hariri asked the United States, France and the international community to intervene and stop the conflict. Palestine has demanded global sanctions against Israel over its existing and planned illegal settlements in the West Bank. Senior Palestinian official Saeb Erekat says Israel has been involved in systematic human rights violations and war crimes for decades. Saeb Erekat urged the world to take notice of new Jewish settlements in the occupied territories. Hanan Ashrawi says Israel is violating the UN Charter and the Rome Statute on War Crimes and Genocide. Ashrawi says Israel is pursuing a racist nation-state law, which was adopted earlier this year by the Knesset. Earlier, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pledged to make all illegal Jewish settlements part of Israel. Meanwhile, the Israeli army arrested 22 Palestinians in overnight raids in the West Bank. The United Nations warns warring parties in Libya that attacks on civilians may constitute war-to-war crimes. In a statement, the mission said it will approach the International Criminal Court over the recent attack on Tripoli's Mitiga airport. The mission said it will share details of the attack with the International Criminal Court and the Security Council. It said the attack was designed to sow fear, create chaos and disrupt operations at the only working airport in Tripoli. The UN said the attack can't be justified under any pretext. Now, as the war continues in Syria, Syria says the ceasefire declared by the army in northwestern Idlib province is temporary. Syria's presidential advisor Botaine Shaban says the ceasefire was set up to stabilize the situation inside Idlib. Shaban says Turkish troops currently in Idlib will be forced to leave the country. The Syrian army says it reserves the right to respond to any violation by the Al-Qaeda-linked Nusra Front. Russia's defense ministry has asked rebels to abandon its armed resistance and join the peace process. Moscow claims Russian and Syrian warplanes have not carried out any recent raids in the region. Britain's opposition Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn says his party wants an election to stop a no-deal Brexit. In a speech, Corbyn said the Labour Party will give people the final say about Brexit, including the option to remain in the EU. He said a vote of no confidence against Prime Minister Boris Johnson is very much on the table.
The vote of no confidence is very much there on the table. It's not an either-or. Both options are absolutely there. And we will do everything we can in the coming weeks to prevent a no deal. We want a general election so the people of this country can decide their future.
Now, staying with the crisis on Brexit, it seems ex-British Prime Minister Tony Blair has commented and warned the Labour Party to ignore the government's general election ploy. Blair says Prime Minister Boris Johnson is laying an election elephant trap the opposition must avoid. The opposition and rebel MPs are planning to legislate against the possibility of a no-deal Brexit. UK media says Prime Minister Johnson has threatened to expel rebel Tories if they voted with the opposition. But Blair says Johnson was just pretending to be pushed into an election by creating a Brexit drama.
Boris Johnson knows that if no-deal Brexit stands on its own as a proposition, it might well fail. But if he mixes it up with the Brexit question and the Corbyn question together in a general election, he could succeed, despite a majority being against a no-deal Brexit, because some may fear a Corbyn premiership more.
Now, US Vice President Michael Pence says Poland is nearly eligible for a visa waiver program with the United States. Pence is in Warsaw along with delegates from over 40 countries to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the start of World War II. During a meeting with Polish President Andrzej Duda, Pence said 10 million Poles live in the United States. He also said Polish people are one of his country's biggest ethnic minorities. US President Donald Trump will visit Poland this fall. Pence signed a joint declaration with Poland on 5G network security.
And I'm pleased to see that Poland is nearing eligibility for the visa waiver program. And I've Happy to report to you today that the United States intends to nominate Poland as soon as it meets its requirements.
The US and 10 Southeast Asian countries have begun maritime military drills as part of a joint exercise. The exercise will extend into the South China Sea, which has been a flashpoint between Beijing, Washington and its allies. 8 warships, 4 aircrafts and more than 1,000 personnel are taking part in the drills. The US Navy's Southeast Asia Security Head Rear Admiral Joey Tinch says the AUMX exercise builds greater maritime security on the strength of ASEAN. The exercise, the first of its kind, will last for 5 days. It begins at the Satahip Naval Base in Thailand and ends in Singapore. The drills have come under criticism for pulling in Myanmar's navy despite US sanctions against its top army commanders over the Rohingya crisis. Now in Hong Kong, over 10,000 students have boycotted their class on the first day of the new school year, joining the ongoing protests in the country. Students brave stormy weather to form human chains around their campuses. The school boycott is part of a broader anti-government campaign initially triggered by a controversial extradition bill. Earlier, mass protesters wreaked havoc at the Hong Kong International Airport and trashed the railway station. Police say 40 prominent activists have been arrested in the clashes. Now, dozens have been arrested in Johannesburg after rioters looted shops, burned tyres and blocked roads. It's the second outbreak of urban rioting in a week. Angry protesters looted foreigners' shops during the unrest in the suburb of Turfentine. Police are unable to say what sparked the violence. Local media says the protest began after the alleged murder of a taxi driver by a foreign national. 15 people have been killed after a 3-story building under construction collapsed in Mali's capital of Bamako. The government says 26 people were saved from the rubble. The Civil Protection Ministry says an investigation has opened against the owner of the building. Hurricane Durian has slammed into the northwestern area of the Bahamas as a Category 5 storm, packing 185 miles per hour winds. Durian has crashed offshore on the Abacos Islands today. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says it's the strongest ever hurricane recorded in the area. Thousands of Grand Bahama residents have been evacuated from its predicted path. Officials say parts of the Abacos are underwater, with the storm surge hitting as high as 23 feet. The southeastern U.S. states of Florida, Georgia and South Carolina have also been ordered to have mass evacuations.
The strength of this storm cannot be underestimated. We will see tropical force winds within the next 48 hours. The National Hurricane Center reports Durian could nearly stall over the Bahamas for more than 24 hours starting late tonight.
Now, Greece is shifting hundreds of asylum seekers from an overcrowded camp on the island of Lesbos. The Moria camp on the island holds almost 4 times the number of people it was built for. Around 600 migrants arrived in the camp on August 29th from Turkey. This is the largest number of refugees the island has received in over 3 years. The arrival prompted Greek authorities to summon an emergency meeting. The authorities say they will tighten up border controls and speed up deportation of rejected asylum seekers. Well, authorities in Bolivia continue to struggle to contain the ongoing wildfires, which have decimated at least 1 million hectares of forest land. The flames leave a desolate landscape in their wake, strewn with burnt trees and the bodies of animals who perished in the blaze. More in this report.
The Chiquita dry forest's flora and fauna have suffered tremendous losses in the Bolivian wildfires. What's left behind seems like a vision of the apocalypse. One can also see the bodies of dead peccaries, rabbits and snakes in the blackened earth.
The fire is very harmful for local ecosystems because the animals which are dying here are all endangered. At this rate, soon these animals will be lost forever. For example, only one jaguar has been rescued from the area since the fire started.
2,000 firefighters and the military are working together to contain the blaze, but a significant amount of damage has already been done.
Firefighters are being deployed daily to the area affected by the fires. An intensive search is in place to try and locate animals that need help and to transport them to the center.
Environmentalists and locals blame Bolivian President Evo Morales for the disaster. They accuse him of passing legislation that encourages slash and burn farming. The Morales government says it is dry weather and strong winds that are to blame.
Now, the Amazon rainforests are still under fire and with little help from the international community in ending the inferno. Now, the forest's indigenous people are turning to prayer. They believe they can stop the destruction and protect the environment for future generations. More in this report.
As fire ravages the world's largest rainforest, the tribes that have always lived in the Amazon are turning to prayer. In the village of Feo in Brazil's west, the indigenous Xanenawa tribe are performing a ritual meant to find peace between humans and nature.
This is a ritual for the Amazon to fight the smoke in our country. We want peace and love. We want to fight the smoke in the Amazon.
Faces painted, dozens dance in circles as they pray to put an end to the blaze. Tens of thousands of forest fires have been recorded in the Amazon in this year's dry season. At the same time, Brazil's new far-right president, Jair Bolsonaro, has argued the forest needs to be exploited. The backlash has been particularly strong against the Bolsonaro administration. Government says it does not have the resources to put out the fires. Bolsonaro has made headlines for saying too much of the country's territory is unproductive because indigenous tribes have special rights.
If this continues the way it is, with money causing the destruction of the Amazon, in 50 years' time, we will no longer have the forest standing up, and we will not feel secure in what we have, in our culture, in our language, and in our songs. Because without the forest, we won't be able to farm. Without the forest, we won't be able to eat. Without our land, we won't be able to live.
Most of the Amazon is located in Brazil, but significant parts also cover Colombia and Peru, where fires have also been found. While the inferno wreaks havoc in the region, the indigenous people are optimistic that man and nature can live without destroying each other.
Now, the beachy island of Lido in Venice has become a haven for movie stars in the past week. In a world driven by ratings and reviews, this year's gathering will decide the fate of some of the best work done in Hollywood this year. More in this report.
Unlike the Cannes Festival, with its long lines and imperious staff, the 76th Venice Film Festival kicked off with a rather sultry and laid-back atmosphere. The splashy premieres and less stressful press queues made up for the late screening times. Stars from the silver screen and those behind it were inhibited by the serene Italian energy, a break from the mechanical chaos of life.
I wish we would have lived in the 90s for a little longer, because for sure for mental health issues, I think that would have helped a lot, because I don't feel like things are going at a speed that we are prepared for.
Hollywood legend Meryl Streep dazzled the red carpet with the premiere of Laundromat, based on the Panama Papers scandal. Her co-star Gary Oldman spoke of the power of cinema to bring about social change.
Can it bring about change? Well, yeah, if people see it. So I think this new age that we're in with television, this will reach this movie, because of it, will reach a lot of people.
Of the 21 directors in the running for the festival's top prize, the Golden Lion, only 2 are female, something that has drawn criticism. The 26th Venice Film Festival will run till September the 7th.
A youth innovation hub in southern China has brought 2 promising young people together. They pursue their shared dream of making entertaining robots. More in this report.
Shanghai Shenzhen Hong Kong Youth Innovation and Entrepreneur Hub was established in 2014. It is a platform to promote greater cooperation between innovators between the city of Shenzhen and neighboring Hong Kong. This is where 2 like-minded young people met each other.
The opportunity was given by Qianhai Shenzhen Hong Kong Youth Innovation and Entrepreneur Hub. This happened to be a Shenzhen Hong Kong exchange event, and Wo was here for the event. He is very special, and I felt it was a great opportunity.
Zhao Jinjian set up a company called Gongjiangshe in 2015 to create a new way of entertaining with robotics and artificial intelligence. Zhou Zeting shares Zhao's ideas and helps promote entertaining robot competitions. Zhao says the hub helps solve basic problems for young entrepreneurs.
This place offers an opportunity for Hong Kong and even international talents to go together. The hub provides good support to the robot and hardware industry. It also provides us with some government-funded application channels to solve problems of venue and initial funding.
Guo says Shenzhen and Hong Kong have their own advantages that collectively benefit their company.
There are a lot of new startups in Shenzhen, and there are many more talents engaged in startups in this area than Hong Kong. I think Hong Kong's advantage lies in its outward promotion. This advantage is very obvious. When our products are made, it is easier to get foreign attention with some promotion efforts in Hong Kong.
Since it opened, the hub has helped establish 466 entrepreneurial teams.
Now everybody loves the circus, and one circus in Montreal is adding a high-tech spin to its traditional performances. But acrobats, clowns and trade animals are still very much a big part of this circus, enjoyed by children and adults alike. More in this report.
2 strange white pyramids have sprouted in Quebec this summer to make a 21st century big top. It's Canada's Cirque du Soleil going up a notch. This time, tapping into Quebec's rich animation and video game production talent. They are part of the latest act from Guy Lalibert's Venerable Circus. The troupe's latest show blends acrobatics and multimedia flair with vibrant sounds, lasers, and 360-degree projections.
The city has become the world's central center of expertise in creation, but also in production. There are a lot of talented and experienced technicians who are based here in Montreal.
The company's latest show, Through the Echoes, tells the story of the universe from its creation all the way to the present day. Bosch Dreams, which first appeared at the Montreal Cirque Festival in July, is attempting to blend technology, theatre and art. It brings to life the best-known work of Dutch painter Hieronymus Bosch using digital animation.
Today we create shows by also seeking expertise in the field of video games, and we start to merge to break down barriers between people who come from the world of entertainment, the world of circus, the world of theatre and the world of video games to create new forms of entertainment.
The circus company is always looking for the brightest young minds to add a new inventive flavour to its shows.
The strength is that the National Circus School puts a lot of emphasis on technique, and so they develop artists still have a high level of acrobatic training and a high level of caliber, and to that they add as much as possible an artistic quality. They will try to give words all that.
In the autumn, the White Pyramids will arrive in Miami, where audiences will watch virtual actors and acrobats with augmented reality glasses.
Welcome back. Now let's take a look at the world of business. And a US trade organization says the fresh list of tariffs on Chinese imports is the country's worst economic mistake in decades. The Consumer Technology Association represents over 2,000 US tech companies. Association President Gary Shapiro says the taxes will badly hurt US consumers and negatively affect its economy. He says the trade war with China has cost the consumer technology industry over $10 billion. The Consumer Technology Association says the new tariffs will not help reach a meaningful trade agreement. Earlier, the US and China hit each other with new tariffs on thousands of their products. Well, British manufacturing has shrunk at the fastest rate in 7 years amid the deepening Brexit crisis and the global downturn. The IHS Market Purchasing Manager Index fell to 47.4 in August, lower than the forecast. The UK economy contracted 0.2% in the second quarter compared with the previous 3 months. IHS Markets Director Rob Dawson says high levels of economic and political uncertainty is stifling the performance of manufacturers. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has promised to take the UK out of the EU at the end of next month with or without a deal. Now, in Argentina, the government authorized the central bank to limit purchases of dollars in an effort to support the peso. President Mauricio Macri signed the order after the peso fell to a record low following the results of the primary elections last month. Firms will now have to seek the central bank's permission to buy foreign currency and to make transfers abroad. The central bank said the individuals will require permission to purchase more than $10,000 a month. The measures will apply until the end of this year. Well, it's 33 degrees here in Lahore, but let's take a look at the weather around the world. Well, that's all from me and the team here in Lahore, but I'll be back on the top of the hour with the headlines. Bye-bye.